Hi, my name is Allison Umminger Madison, and I am a spiritual director affiliated with Ignatius House, which is a Jesuit retreat center in Atlanta, Georgia. I am here today talking about this passage from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 4, verses 1 to 22, where we see Peter and John in front of Sadducees and then presumably, even more rulers, elders, people they get in trouble with, proclaiming their faith in Jesus and specifically the resurrection of Jesus, which is where people get hung up, right? People are kind of like, okay, it's fine if you're healing someone, but please stop doing it and saying that Jesus was physically resurrected and back among them. And our companion to this was this piece by John Bloom about boldness, right? And boldness being a characteristic acting by the power of the Holy Spirit, which I think is a really important part to remember, on an urgent conviction in the face of some threat. So, Holy Spirit, conviction, face of a threat. And what resonated for me as I was reading this was you can't really fake that kind of conviction. Like if you don't believe in the resurrection, if John and Peter are not standing there really 100% convinced in their heart that this is what is true and this is what is the healing presence. And even going so far as to say, only Jesus, which is something I think many of us now would probably be really uncomfortable saying, right? Or if we went in our hearts, we might think, is that something I believe? Is that something I would say? They have no hesitation. They are utterly fearless in the face of bodily harm and in the face of a world where a lot of people just think, no, that's not possible. Like you've gone too far. So what does this have to say to an American, right? Like I assume that's most of the people watching this now, for whom maybe it's not life-threatening what you believe or don't believe in the privacy of your home. Maybe you have doubts. Maybe you have things you wonder about. So the first, and I think the most important thing to remember here is that this was informed by the presence of the Holy Spirit, that they let the Spirit be with them and help them and in fact, give them the words to say. So I think that what we can do now is pray. Continue to be open to God in prayer. Make sure if you have questions, and I think some of us do, or we have at different points in our life, keep praying to them. If you say, I don't know if I would be comfortable doing this, God, pray with that. Say, okay, God, I'm struggling with this part of faith. What can you do for me? And as I was meditating on that, I started thinking about plants that survive drought, right? Drought maybe being the pressure, being all the things where it's a dry season. And I thought about how their roots have to go very, very deep. And I was researching that, and I realized that one of the plants with a very, very deep root is the mustard seed, which is pretty cool. So I think that in the seasons of our life where we're not being challenged necessarily, where we're not being dragged in front of people having to defend our faith, that's the time to keep praying, to take these things where we're not sure about all of them and let them sit with God in our heart and say, hey, God, show me what I need to see with this. Help me have the grace of a bold faith. And that is the grace that I would invite all of you to pray for today. The grace of a bold faith, a faith that is filled with relationship, that is filled with courage, and that has confidence that God is with us to meet us in whatever situation, however challenging, or if the challenge is simply a dry season.